Hey guys, this is Kirop speaking, and in today's Little Dev Update we are going to take a look at the campaign mode and what changes are in there, even though that is a little difficult to remember for myself, because I've been with these new features for too long already. What we are also going to take a look at is some more of what came of the engine designer revamp calculations and where they are sitting right now, at least with my prototype. Some pretty exciting stuff in there as well. Alright, this time around we're going to start out in campaign mode. Welcome to the campaign. I have loaded into a little save that I've been playing for testing with a project that has not been signed off yet, but everything has been set up and constructed. So let's take a quick look at what is new in campaign. The main problem with this will be that I actually don't remember what is new in campaign, because I've been playing this version for way too long already. And now let's just take a look and get into it. One of the main things that I remember is new is that we now have a project map. Open the project map. Whenever you click this little button down there, you get a full overview of your current project and you can quick navigate to those points. Do you want to go into the setup for the factory of this specific trim? Well, there you go. There you go. You just click there and you're in the factory. Now I actually do want to go to setting up the engine right. So let's go. Damn, can't click that. That's a bug. Found one. It should have dropped you here when clicking on the other button. So you instantly can navigate to this specific variance settings in there, or get you to the family instantly as well. So this is very handy for especially larger projects, where you, for instance, are in a situation where you do want to change something for, let's say, the trim of a car. For instance, the interior. So, I should probably choose the premium interior because I have more familiarity there. And before, it was a case of, okay, you load into a car, you navigate there, you select the interior you want, then you have to go back to the car project designer, then you have to select the next trim. You have to again navigate to here and select that. And now what you can do is, well, you are there, it's blinking. You just go to the equivalent there and can change it right away there without having this extra step of moving out a layer. You can just instantly go there. It could be a little bit smarter about where it places you. Could save the actual tab where you were on for the other one you were just looking at. That would make it even more comfortable. But overall, I think this was giving the player a much better overview of what is going on, especially when you are starting to share engines. These are not listed twice. So let me show you that. Let's say we are cloning the family trim. So over here we're just cloning our car and we are going to make it a convert. Yes. When we open the project map again, you will now see that yes, both the family trim and the convertible trim are using this engine. So they are not doubled up. It keeps it nice and consistent for how they are layered. And you can see that the factory is not actually set up correctly to be producing this one. So we can click there and instantly go to the factory. And then, broken thumbs, right? But just check up that they are all correctly set. And while going through here, I'm just going to mention that this UI is getting a revamp as well. We now have, for the individual sliders, the various effects all listed here. For the production units, engineering cost, engineering time, and so on. You can see the contributions from the various sliders and get an overall feeling for that, while they are all summarized over here in this table as well. For the first trim, or for the first car model that you are making, you still get the 36-month reduction of engineering time, much needed to get an earlier start. Let's take a look at the factories. There are some more changes in here, which are quite interesting. If we get into this factory, we have, well, first of all, look, there's something in the background here that we're going to take a look at as well. For those of you who have played the campaign before, you see some panels here that haven't been there before. Often often players have been pointed out, and I've noticed this myself, of course, as well, is that the production matching between engines and cars is extremely important to be aware of, but it was displayed in all of the places, but not the right ones where you actually needed it. So now, if you have set up your partial production of either car or engine already, you can see it here for the other one that you set up, so that you get matching loads. This tab is going to change, and it is going to change by us adding a bottom UI and some graphs to it. So this will become, this what you see here will become a little window, or not so little window, large window, and then there will be more graphs, production quality graph, and some employment info as well on there, plus some UI, 5 sliders on there. Where do these sliders come from? Well, let's talk about it. They are coming from worker wages, worker quality, and we are moving into individual factories the settings for minimum shifts, target shifts, and maximum shifts. Those of you who have been trying to build a model which includes like a super luxury or extreme trim that has various production flags and should not be produced by the normal large factory, because it's just not possible to properly automate the production of it, you will rejoice, because now you can set this up properly. You can have a small factory along with your large factory, which previously also has been the case, but you no longer have to adhere to the global settings for your production shift count. You can determine shift count, worker quality, worker wages per factory. And this is also very important because, well, worker quality is a new slider. What it does is pretty significant, as you can see here, very significant. Oh, we're even getting to a loss. How nice. Look at this. This is such a nice feature. I love the pie chart in a circle thing. Well, basically, this tells you how much loss you're going to make with these settings, and this, on the other hand, shows you, and it's green, how much profit there's in there, scaled according to the area of it, so that you have something to compare to. So this is at the set sales price for the car, how much profit there is left over on average for these that are being produced there, and that is on a per factory basis as well. Very handy to get a feel while you're setting up the factories for how much your production settings, tooling quality, automation, thresholds for the QA and so on, how much all of that is affecting your profits, your potential profits. Not only do some values change here, but you no longer have to add them up in your head. That's quite helpful, I guess. I was never good at it, at least. Yes, so that's pretty cool. You can see the effect right there, along with the production graphs, so that you know how this affects the overall balance between engines that are needed versus the cars that you produce. So this page will be a lot more in-depth, because this takes the factory settings for your shift count, as well as the wages and worker quality. Speaking of worker quality, let's take a look at the effect here. This is going to be made harsher than even this, but the various countries in the game do have different worker skill levels, just in general, like education levels and whatnot, and also, of course, they have different populations. So, yeah, that makes it a little hard to start your huge factory in Delua, because Delua is a tiny country. Where are all those people supposed to come from? Are you going to employ like half its population? And if you do you really expect them to be this? Or more like something around there? Yeah, that's a good question. So what happens if you are setting wages to, let's say, just 20% lower than industry average for the region, and then you require them to be all PhDs, basically? Well, for this very small factory still, in Florinia, it will now take you 30 months to fill these positions, and this should be way higher than this number. I'm going to change the mechanics a little bit. They are currently a little too linear, and not really adapted to what the worker skill level in the country is. But I think Florinia is about middle-ish, so this is a good candidate for this. So, yes. Are you going to wait 30 months? And this is starting. The timer is ticking from tooling start. Are you going to wait 30 months? Or are you going to lower your requirements or up the wages? Because you see that is making a massive difference as well. Of course, this is also going to change your retention and so on. So there are more positives about this, but it does increase the size of the labor cake, doesn't it? And for those of you who are saying like, okay, Rob, I've played the campaign, and starting in a HANA isn't easy. If this is going to screw me over even more, then this will be super hard. And yes, you're correct. This will be very hard. HANA will be able to make a lot of shitboxes, that's for sure, like poor quality shitboxes. And if you go to Helvetia at the start, you will have a very skilled workforce there available to you, and you will be able to fill those positions quickly. But they will cost you a buttload as well. So, it's lots of choices there. But what happens if you don't fill all those positions? Unless you have 100%, can't you start production? No, of course not. So the way it's going to work is that if you have reached 50% of your targeted workforce in that factory gets switched on at half shift count for what it wants to be. And in the following months, you are going to start to see that, well, you're still hiring and you're starting to fill positions. And if we now just sign this one off, you are going to see that happening, that the positions are being filled. So yes, you can start production right away, but it might lag at the start if your requirements were higher than what they should have been. Or maybe that is what you accept. Slow production at the start. There's a new field here for that, and you can see that the tooltip for it is working already. Right now, 0% are employed. We have an empty factory, and we are getting... that's filling very quickly. We're getting 92 staff per month, and it takes 7 months to fill the positions, and that is like 15% per month. And you also see the worker experience level. And what happens if you change, like, wages and so on facelifts? Well, some workers will decide to leave if they get all of a sudden lower pay, of course. Or if you all of a sudden have higher requirements. That might also happen. Now, before we are signing this off and showing you how this plays out, let's head into the marketing screen, because that has changed a whole lot. Looks the same right now, but let's take a look at what happens if I start to increase these levels. These are the marketing levels that we are looking at, and what you have here is the awareness and the change in awareness per year in percentage. Activated currently is Florinia. We are setting up the marketing for Florinia. One of the major pitfalls here in the marketing system was that you couldn't really tell what the effect of your actions were, and that is terrible for a Tycoon game, of course. So that's the main goal here of changing. What effect do your settings have? Very easy to tell now, because Florinia, yes, let's market it towards the sports people. Total marketing costs, you see over there, and you see the effect right here. The coloring of the coloring of these tiles is the change per year. The opacity of these tiles will change as your profile of awareness changes. if you have the highest awareness in, let's say, track, then this one will be entirely solid, while your off-road, where you have still just like 3% awareness, that will have gone down in opacity a lot, so that you really, after a while, start to see your profile, and you can change it around with what your settings are here over time. But yeah, let's take a look at off-road. Yeah, you see the effect very clearly here. So it's a very specialized one there. But if we wanted to market, for instance, to fuel economy, yeah, you see that. Very much improved direct feedback for what you're setting. These marketing settings do affect the demographics that care for that stat. That wasn't entirely clear before. If you read about it in here, then yes, you would have figured that out, but way too few of you actually do read the descriptions. Yes. Anyway, we are going to now set it up for more than one country. Let's... no, Farina doesn't care about that. No, drivability. Looks like a good deal for 105k. And then for Helvetia, we do some... No, sportiness, they don't care. Just drivability, but one extra. Or maybe just like this. You can see the split over there. Yeah, okay. Maybe some comfort. Yes, nice. Cool. Now let's take a quick look at one of those new features that has been talked about for a long time. We did have the map reveal at some point in the already pretty distant past. This was supposed to be part of Light Campaign 4.2 to flesh out the game world a bit more. So let's design a new factory and let's get it to a state. This has been improved since, but we have our world map sitting here, and I can currently choose Helvetia or Farina. So see there on our nice little world map, properly masked and everything, and there are different zoom levels. This has been fixed since, as you can see. We have, it's getting a little washed out there, but as you zoom in, you get more and more detail, like river names and all that. And yes, so you have a pretty detailed world, and all these names will be appearing as kind of factory name suggestions, as well as you will be starting to see them. Oh, okay, that one. I think that no, where is it? There's a mountain here. There it is. There, my company is actually named after this mountain. There you see it. So there's plenty of room for your lore and so on. And I see some of the layering is not quite right with the rivers going through the lakes, but minor details. Still some polishing left to do here. And I'm really looking forward to having this all implemented in the game. And there might be some little community activities coming up for this. More on that another time. Let's see if there's anything new in here. I can't remember if we had the car body unlocks as a timeline. Maybe I've shown that before. Maybe that was part of 4.1. So I'm not going to dwell on this. It's quite handy to see when new bodies are coming up. And also when you're designing a new car, you will now, of course, see a little bit into the future. If you design a new car like this, we just select the family and manual. And then you see in gray what body types will be popping out in those various years that are coming up in the near future. While I honestly do think that this version of the campaign that we currently have in closed testing is already way more solid than the campaign that you have at the moment in 4.1, it is still not quite there. We want to figure out some of those remaining issues that are causing confusion at this point, and the exploits like the free factories that you build standalone. But once that is done, which hopefully is towards the end of the week, then we are looking at finally releasing this. This is going to be so much fun. Yeah, alright, I think this is a nice little look at what we're currently at least doing with the campaign, and some of the changes you might have spotted there as well if you've played campaign before. All good? Let's just take a quick look at what this world and markets, or rather the marketing thing, looks like for a more advanced company. And by more advanced, this is just 9 years into it, so it's not really the proper full profile that you would get from a very specialized late game company, but you can see here what this does. So I've been focusing quite a lot on sports cars in this, and my setup here is very clearly that I do want to do family cars, but also quite sporty stuff. And you see that these here, like heavy utility, I've not invested much into that at all. They are not caring about my company because I just don't make these vehicles. So they have become much more transparent, these tiles, while you see the focus growing for these segments. And if I don't activate this, but just this one. Yes, this shows it quite nicely. And once you reach like 30, 40, 50%, it will get quite green, which will look quite nice as well. All right. I think that covers at least a small bit of the campaign stuff that is in there and will be playable very soon. And now I think I want to switch over to my little prototype engine calculator simulations and just give you a brief update on what is going on there. Last time we talked a lot about the AFR map, some throttle calculations, and in general compression and timing, and that was the main focus, like the compression timing, the revamp of that, and yes, how the timing is now adaptive to your engine instead of being the thing that determines when things knock because you just don't want it to budge. So this is a much more realistic model. At that point it was already, but now this has gone a lot further. And as you can see here, we also have now the AFR map in the game, in the prototype of the game. And what I want to show you is mainly what has come from me implementing a full throttle run-through of the engine. So now one engine calculation no longer is that you run through the engine calculation at full throttle only, but it is taking 100 steps through all throttle settings and running one engine calculation across the whole rev range for all of that. So basically it's 100 engine calculations in the time of one, or not in the time of one, but in place of one. With that we can do pretty cool stuff, and much more realism is approaching. So let me show you what I've put in here. I just need to remember my controls, all hotkeys. So yes, this is an engine with this AFR map. Let's take a look and make it a little bit more aggressive. So fuel map, I can switch this around. This is fuel map setting 80. You can see how it becomes more orange up there, or if I switch to 0, you can see this green eco driving area, cruise area for the engine just expand a lot at the cost of some throttle response in the game. Now, this actually matters because we do go through all of these points, these data points, and potentially use them for cruise calculations and so on. So, yeah, this all of a sudden all matters. This shaded area down here is where the engine produces 0 or less effective power. Because you do need a certain throttle setting in order for the engine to overcome its own friction and pumping losses and whatnot. And this is displayed right there in this form of the graph. The AFR map by itself is something that we looked at in spreadsheet last time, and it's not the most interesting thing, but let's take a look at the other graphs. For instance, this one. Beauty. Brake-specific fuel consumption efficiency map. There you go. So what we now can do, now let me show you this one first. All right, let me show you this timing power map first. We're going to get to the brake-specific fuel consumption right away, but this one first. How do you know what timing is optimal? Well, that's a very hard question to answer. If you are on the side of things where you already are at peak torque timing, that means that you have probably left some on the table. You could increase compression, which would increase octane requirements, where you then can back off slightly by timing retardation, but not through that timing retardation lose lots of power, just a tiny amount, but you've gained all the efficiency and so on from the compression. Alright, so what happens if I increase compression here? Look, take a look at the map. The blue stuff, that is power left on the table, is excessive. The light blue stuff is, it's a little bit of power left on the table, but nothing major. You see some green creeping in there, rather. So let's increase compression. You see how the general power curve of the engine shifts upwards. We're just gaining power, basically. And we're just there. You can see this tiny dent in the full throttle timing line. Just take the tiniest of dips. So this is getting pretty close to optimal. It's not quite there yet. Yeah, you can increase it further. You see the timing drop. Now you start to see a little bit of a yellow area there. That is where we leave power on the table because we had to retard it too much. So the light blue, I think, was like the center of the light blue was 3% lost in power, and the center of the yellow, which we don't see here yet, is also 3%. No, 3% lost versus 3% left on the table. That's a good distinction to have in there. So now we're increasing it further, and now we're definitely getting into the area where you can see that increasing compression further doesn't add any power there. You can see that here too. It's like, as we increase compression, we have to retard timing so much that we don't gain anything from it, or rather we start losing from it. Now you saw this in the center actually move downwards, while the sides, like the top end and the low end, they're still coming up as we increase compression. And this is mirrored in the torque graph that you see there. Okay, what happens if I now switch around the cam profile a little bit? Let's see. So cam 40 instead of 30. Let's see there. Yes, okay. 50, 60, 70. You see how the extra cam, meaning more lift, actually means that you can't rev as high because the stress on the springs is way higher. So you would have to increase spring stiffness, which of course I can do like this. So now we can rev out again, but overall we have more friction in the system, so that will be subtracted from that. And that is why you can see the dark area here having moved up significantly in the low end of the engine, where it just can't output enough power. You see how the timing power map also switches around, changes around. So let's continue on. This is way too much cam for this little engine, for this rev range of the engine. And overall, I think we are now way too racy in terms of how high you can go. But I assume that you won't be complaining. Ooh, this engine, you see that dropping to 0 at 7,700, and you see that here as well, mirrored in there. It's not running cam 0 that high is not recommended. Now, let's take a look at the brake-specific fuel consumption map, if I find the hotkey for it. There. So, 33% right there. Let's drop compression a little bit. So now we are right at the best power output for peak torque, basically. Oh, maybe one more there. Did that register? Yes, I believe so. Yeah, that's good. All right. And now let's change cam around. You see here, best efficiency is around-ish 80% throttle for the engine. And this is all dynamically calculated. So for each point, it is, or for each throttle point, it is running the whole row of results every 100 RPM, and then it goes through like throttle 0.01, throttle 0.02, throttle 0.03 for each one of these full engine calculation. And then in the end, of course, you calculate how much power it was making, and then compare it to how much fuel you put into the system. And that gives you the brake-specific fuel efficiency. So now let's change around, let's say, springs first. So more spring, more spring, more spring. You see how that actually adds friction. This black area goes up. The efficiency overall decreases. And now let's go to 0 spring. Boom. Ooh. Doesn't rev anywhere, but now you have basically 0 resistance in your drivetrain. Close to. Yeah, revving. I mean, modern cars. I mean, it's 2012. Who needs to rev higher than 3,500 anyway, right? So yeah, that's nice. And you can see how this comes up. This line comes up and up, and then we go back to 0 there. Now let's change the springs to something reasonable again and increase cam instead. You see how that shifts the point of maximum efficiency quite a lot. So, and higher actually in this case. So yeah, and now it will disappear off to the side and back there. It's cam 0. So loads of effects that were previously hidden and not considered are now, or will be, now in automation. This has become way more of an actual engine simulator now than it has ever before. I think this is pretty awesome. Will be a bit of pain to get all implemented, but we are working on this iteration already. We have some of these maps in, I think this one is already in the game, in the branch where we test these engine changes. The AFR map as well. The brake-specific fuel consumption map, not yet. There's a lot of bug searching and so on. This simulation is working pretty much bug-free from what I can tell. But getting this all ported into C++, of course, is a pain. And that's a shame that it's taking a little longer. But I think when you look at this cool stuff, you're probably going to agree that, yeah, that's probably worth it in the long run. Yeah, I think you agree. And now to make things even cooler, of course, let me just switch over to a turbo engine. That makes calculations way slower. So now we have the compressor map there, and there comes the calculation results. Let's see, is this turbo fucked? Oh, I believe so. Let's take a look. Yeah, here you see the timing. This kind of artifact that comes there is due to it being on boost. Yeah. Let's see what we can do here in order to tune this properly. We do have major issues with volumetric efficiency because of, what will it be? It's not the intake, not the exhaust. It does look like either the fuel system or just the valves. I would bet on the valves. Let's give it some more cam and see what happens. Oh yes, that has made things a lot better. Lift is required to get air into the engine. Who would have thought? So this is a much more important factor now than it ever was before. You see some interesting timing power map stuff. You do see that, yes, well, now that we are on boost, we actually have to take out a fair amount of timing in order to allow for that boost to happen. So it will be a matter of choosing a nice compromise for compression, where it's about maximum power, that we talked about last time, maximum power, which goes up as you decrease in compression, but maximum power goes up as you decrease compression, but the low-end power and economy driving off boost will be quite a bit worse. Okay, this is a better tune, I'd say. Rev limiter makes it, if you want about this double graph here, basically, this is not a bug, but rather this dropping off of the power curve, torque curve, power curve towards the end, that kind of goes back down the line then for the engine. But this turbo setup looks a lot more appropriate for this base engine. Now let's take a look at what this looks like. Brake-specific fuel efficiency map. Yes, turbos can now be efficient. And let's... Oh, we have fuel map setting of 0. Let's take a look at the fuel map as well. So fuel map 0. Now we do have some boost in there. So let's increase the fuel map to higher values. You will see that it's becoming more orange than it was for the naturally aspirated engine. And that is because we are adding some more fuel for the boost. You see where the boost comes in this little curve right there. Where you see that, oh, all of a sudden we need to dump some extra fuel in there. That is a very interesting power timing map as well. You see the slither, that is this green area where it's optimal. And turbo engines are kind of hard to set up in terms of efficiency, because you can only choose one compression. So if you increase compression, then you see that this will be, quite red. We're actually lowering the power output of the engine because we need to pull too much timing. And you see that represented at the in the full throttle graph here as well. While we're still increasing the performance on the low end. And if we go to the brake-specific fuel consumption map, you also see similar effect. So decreasing compression actually doesn't help, because the maximum efficiency is being reached on a partial spool. So more compression for the turbo engine means worse maximum power output, and severely so if you go too high, like 10-to-1 for 1 bar boost. That would be considered too high. But you do see that it does increase and continues to increase, even if you try to run the engine at 12-to-1, which you can. You just have to retard timing into oblivion. And yeah, that looks pretty red and not good for the engine. If we change the fuel setting here then to 0, so the stark contrast, that is a very efficient engine. But not so much on boost. Like on partial boost, let's see, this would be... We can't see this represented there, but if we go to the timing map, yeah, this is right there. Right there is the maximum. See that? Yeah, it's in this greenish yellow area. That is where you reach the maximum efficiency. Alright, I think this has been quite a journey into engineering insanity that is being implemented as part of automation. Something that many of you have been asking for over many years. Probably in a way that was... No, I know it. It was in a way that was never viable or feasible. Where you wanted to manually change the various points in your timing maps and AFR maps. That is not going to happen ever, because that is just tedious as fuck, as you would say. But rather, just some simple sliders. How about that? Alright, I think this is enough for now. This is not really a little dev update anymore. I hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time.